Hello, my name's Tina McDonald. Thanks for joining me today. When you work with a pluralistic counsellor such as myself, if you have long-term issues that you'd like to have a look at, or even a pattern that you feel might be running in the background in a short-term issue, then it's often helpful to work with a timeline. So I thought today I might just have a little talk and a little look at what a timeline might look like and how we develop it when we work together. I will pop this up on the screen at the end of the video. She said confidently that I will work out how to do. So this is a timeline, and on here the way that it works is we start off by writing across the top, as we've talked about before in former videos, goals, tasks and method. So the why, the goal, why am I here? The task, what do we need to have a look at? And the method, how will we work together? And as a pluralistic counsellor, we have lots of different things that we can bring in and constantly review. Down here we always put our moments. So for example, going to university, getting married, having my family, job, learning how to unicycle, whatever it might be. If it's important to you, if it's what you would actually classify as a moment, that celebration, then we write that down the side. We do this before we start because it gives us that vision of who you are and where you're coming from and why you're here. And then we always have a look at the born and the future. So we mark down in sections, primary school, high school, if you went to college, you went straight to your first job, you went straight to married with children, whatever it is, the sections of your life that we will then look at in more detail. We always say from when you're born to leave a little space before, and I always ask the question, who was in the house when you were born? It might be that a grandparent was the main caregiver, it might be that you lived with grandparents, it might be that even before you had been born, one of your parents had left, the relationship had broken down, they'd lost a child before you had arrived on the scene, and that might impact how you were then brought into the world and welcomed. All of these things are the starting point to you and to your story. And then we have a look at primary school, friends, relationships, how did you find it? Again, who were the main people? What was happening? Was there a significant event? I find it quite helpful that if we're looking at life, if there are major events that you might not necessarily think back in a way of, it was joyous and it was wonderful, that maybe if we separate them up and just put them on the bottom line, and then down here we see those significant events that were not necessarily wonderful to have lived through. A loss of a grandparent, a loss of a parent, an extreme case of bullying, a car crash, something that had an impact on how you view the world or how your small immediate world as a child in particular was affected by this event. Likewise, if it's something that's really important and you met your best friend at primary school and we're going to put them here and we're still going to say that they're here because you're still best friends or you married each other or whatever happened, that goes along the top. So we're still talking, we're sitting together filling all the bits and pieces out. All it does is give you a visual look at the patterns. The woman who was my caregiver, my grandma, she died when I was being bullied in primary school. And since then I've been searching for what she offered me before all of that happened. Those kind of things are what happens when they pop up on your timeline. And it also gives you the chance to say, crikey, every 2 years I change job. Imagine that. Or why wasn't I kinder to myself? when I had that terrible car accident in the year that my first child was born. All of these scenarios run as life does, bringing up barriers, alter, change the ebb and flow of other people and of how you are with the same thing throughout different parts of your life. Seeing them in front of you allow you to be able to see that sometimes they collide. Sometimes there are times when, these things happen and you haven't allowed yourself to grieve, to redirect, to mirror that back out and say, crikey, I went through an awful lot then, and still I didn't give myself extra TLC. No wonder the next decision I made was impacted by me being so emotionally drained, or that my shark cage from our other video, some of the bars are not quite tightened up as they should have because my boundaries have been constantly beaten by other people, by things going on in my life that I haven't actually been able to see. I've just been able to react to the feeling of them. And yet here on a timeline, there they are, laid out in front. And it almost separates you from the events and you're able to look at them maybe a little bit more objectively than you would have when you were just sensing how they felt. And all you've been able to do is to go with that feeling rather than stand back, take stock and see which direction you want to go in, you feel you could be going in, rather than just that reaction because of a line of events that you haven't noticed being there. So I hope that was helpful, because when we talk about working on a timeline, it can feel quite daunting, but it's actually just doing what we would be doing anyway, but just marking it down as we go. So if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, leaving messages, have a look at Instagram, have a look at the Facebook page, and take care of yourselves mainly. And I'll see you on the next counselling conversation. Thank you. Bye-bye.